Welcome to episode 47 of Why Not Read Alpha Flight with Chris Baker.
And Tom Flynn, a podcast where we take your favorite series seriously.
As I said last episode, it's springtime for Alpha and Canada. New writer James Hudnall has used the last 4 issues to perform one of the least artful J-turns I have ever read in comics, to course correct from literally everything Bill Mantlo did with the book, and Hudnall continues that inartful J-turn into the next several issues.
So we have, 2 J-turns in a row? What direction does that mean we're actually going?
Who knows? By the end of Volume 5, Alpha Flight's path will look like Jeremy Bearimy. The dot of the I is when the team is working out of a space station over in Captain Marvel in 2016.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
okay.
There's definitely a page where, everybody is attacking the cosmic threat, and Sasquatch and Puck both have, little mini space fighter jets, whereas everybody else is powerful enough to, fly in space and shoot down stuff. And it was really demeaning. That was the thing I took away from that. It was okay, you brought Alpha Flight out here, and now you're making them sit at the kids' table with their own little mini space jets.
See, as you might expect, I'm totally okay with that for Walt, but don't do that to Puck.
Don't do that to my boy Puck.
Moving forward, the what is going to be much more important than the how or why. Plus, right now, Hudnall is still trying to tie up some loose Mantlo threads. I mean, again, is he tying them up? Is he bicking him off? Hard to say.
Bicking him off. I like that. Bick is a verb. That's good.
Yep. So we're going to forego the story so far as we pick up exactly where we left off last episode, with the team having dispatched the Dream Queen from her penthouse base in Edmonton back to her own dimension, where she will no doubt further torture Puck. Kind of think the team doesn't know about that necessarily, but they also didn't take the time to ask the DQ what she did to their former teammate.
You're right. Somebody should have been like, hey, before we punch your lights out, can we have our little buddy back? Because I don't know what you're doing with him, but it can't be good. And she informs them, oh no, it's not.
Anyway, Alpha Flight is taking a moment to figure out what comes next in
Alpha Flight number 71, titled Power Plays, cover date June 1989. Writer is James D. Hudnall, penciler is John Calimee, inker is Mike Manley, that's a new name for the book. Letterer is Janice Chiang, colorist as always is Bob Sharen, editor is Carl Potts, associate editor is Marc McLaurin, and Tom Defalco is the editor in power. We're shaking our heads, listeners.
Just enough.
You know, at the end of Across the Spider-Verse, when Miles sees the big graffiti tribute to his dead dad and it says rest in power, I want a big graffiti tribute to Tom Defalco that says edit in power. Because, I remember the cartoon version of Defalco they used in the bullpen bulletins. That was literally everything I knew about Tom Defalco until recently, was that he was a fat, bearded guy who smoked cigars. But that cartoon would be perfect for this. If somebody out there has better skills than me, please, we'd love to see it.
Just before we move on, is Tom Defalco dead? Did you check on this?
I have no idea. I have not.
Okay, because it almost sounds like you're asking for him to be dead in order for this graffiti tribute to happen.
Well, I'm just making an editor in power joke. I wasn't really thinking about death.
On the cover, Vindicator, Box, and Talisman fly towards the reader.
Still alive. He's still alive.
Great. Vindicator, Box, and Talisman fly towards the reader and into action. It's a very generic cover by Calimee. Talisman's dress is all wrong. Box's faceplate is wrong, though. I don't know. That might be a coloring error.
Bob Sharen does, all of the coloring on, this entire book. I don't think that would be Bob's doing. Look, the perspective of the flying characters is poorly rendered. Heather's maple leaf isn't a maple leaf. It's not good.
Splash page open, and I call it a splash page, but it's really 4 panels of military chatter as they approach and identify the penthouse in Edmonton. It's actually an interesting opening. It kind of has almost a video game feel to it in some respects.
Yeah, they are showing these early computer graphic renderings of the people inside the building, which, isn't a thing in 1989, but they, make these wireframe figures of each of the heroes, and for some reason, I think Sasquatch has a tail because the other explanation is not one for a Comics Code Authority approved book. You know what I mean? And we've never seen Sasquatch have a tail, have we?
No.
No, I think there's a little fur flap, but there's no tail. So Tom,
yeah, we're done. We're done discussing
Walt
this
is
element.
definitely back, I guess. This would have looked different a couple issues ago. Oh God, I broke Tom. Yes.
The next page is the real splash page of the military helicopters descending on the building and soldiers pouring out, presaging the problems they're about to kick off for Canada's premier superhero team, who are casually chilling on the couches of that Edmonton penthouse they just destroyed in their fight with the DQ. It's all very odd.
Alpha Flight has team meetings in living rooms. It just doesn't have to be theirs. It's the dead
apparently,
guys.
Any living room is a meeting room as far as Alpha Flight's concerned. Oy.
Team leader Heather Hudson, a.k.a. Vindicator, is still butting heads with Elizabeth, two young men now reunited with her talisman of power, and acting in cryptic ways, often bossing Heather and the team around as if Elizabeth were in charge. This dynamic between them is a constant for the issues we're covering today and next episode, and pretty much all of Hudnall. This is what Elizabeth does. She knows things and tells people this is what we're going to do. And then Heather complains that Elizabeth is taking her spot on the team.
Suddenly, the aforementioned military guys burst in through the windows and doors and surround the team, who immediately throw hands with the Canadian military, no questions asked, until Elizabeth stops everyone and cryptically says, "We've got company." Now, does she mean the couple dozen army guys who just burst in? That everyone can see and or just fought?
Hudnall gives Elizabeth a lot to do, but not a lot of reason or explanation for why she does it. Like we said, the what matters more than the how or why. Everything she does is cryptic here for a while. She just is we used to joke about the Deus Ex Shaman as wrapping up the story. She is the Talis MacGuffin that kicks everything off in the story at the beginning instead of the end. Talis MacGuffin is my new favorite word, Tom.
I'm proud of you. So what you're saying is that every little thing she does is cryptic. Every little thing just turns James on, because Hudnall clearly really likes Talisman, and I don't think this was Calimee's choice. But have you noticed that in this issue, when there's a shot from behind, it looks like Talisman's skirt is basically assless chaps?
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, friend. First of all, assless chaps is like saying sexy gambit. It's redundant. The word chaps covers assless. If there's an ass to the pants, they're pants. If there's no ass, they're chaps. So assless chaps, it just repeats the term. The military guys try to offer Alpha Flight yet another deal to accept military control, and Heather tells them, rightly, to go pound sand once again. Then the mayor of Edmonton shows up to offer Alpha Flight a home base in his city to help protect them from stuff like what we just saw happen with the Dream Queen.
Now, stuff is an interesting word there. We saw on panel a man take a lawnmower to his family. The book said the circle of influence spread as far as Chicago, yet nothing is mentioned anywhere else about the effects of the Dream Queen. The death toll of those few hours of the Dream Queen's reign were enormous and just, poof, never mentioned.
Chicago is woefully underrepresented in superhero comics, but I'm now imagining, if this wave of insanity and violence had just washed over from the north side down and then receded 4 hours later. No one is making a press release in this issue. Canada isn't going to say, oh yeah, an extra dimensional thing did this and caused the evil to come out, but our superhero team that we have no control over stopped it. No, Canada's not going to be telling anybody this. So Chicago is just looking around going, what the fuck just happened?
Especially considering that in the comic books time, it's been less than a month since Alpha Flight almost triggered World War III in China. So at this point, Canada's trying to do their best to pretend Alpha Flight doesn't really exist.
I believe that is... it's not on the page, but That has to be why we keep getting the government coming back and being like, hi, we need to make sure this doesn't happen again, because nuclear missiles, I know you guys are real powerful, but so are nuclear missiles, okay?
Yeah, it's like every fucking time we notice you guys, it's a problem. Like, please, will you just do us a solid and stop it?
I'm trying to think about, like, of the horrible things that happened in Chicago during those hours. There was someone who just opened a bottle of Malört and just drank it.
No, they did not. They did not. Malört was not a thing. Malört was not a thing until like 5 fucking years ago.
Existed.
Okay,
it was there.
I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm saying no one drank it here.
No, there was someone who said, "What is the most terrible, harmful, destructive thing that I can do?" Maybe he's running around the streets shoving bottles of Malört in people's mouths and making them drink the whole thing.
I like the idea that Malört is actually something the Dream Queen created. That works for me. That works.
That is the biggest fallout from this, is that Jepson, or whoever his name is, like, she incepted the idea into his head and said, here's the most evil thing that you can possibly do. You will hurt more mortals than anything I can ever do here.
And on a level, like, you're going to damage their DNA.
Yeah, their soul.
I can't do that.
And he's like, I remember my grandpa made this thing. Let me check the recipes.
Elizabeth accepts Edmonton's offer, which pisses off Heather because, as discussed, that's just their dynamic. I mean, it's almost, I gotta say, it's almost like Elizabeth is edging Heather. Like, don't you want to kill me? Don't you want to kill me?
Shut it down. Nope. Absolutely not, sir. That was too far.
You can keep that one for blackmail purposes if you want.
No, that's in the whole episode. I'm just shutting it down.
Oh, great.
We're going to slice and dice the scenes here to keep following Heather and the team. They use the now under complete control teleporting powers of young Laura Dean to head back to the Edmonton Mall where they had left the unconscious purple girl, a.k.a. Little Kara Kilgrave, 13 years old, in their forgettable battle with China Force. Was that, 2 issues ago? Like, they just forgot Kara. They left her there asleep.
Yep. Very much so. When they get there, Kara has had a few hours of being awake and alone in the presumably evacuated mall, which I can only hope she looted. When the team arrives, she nopes the fuck out of Beta Flight, and so do Laura and Goblin. They're done. So Laura opens up a portal, and Kara, Laura, Goblin exit the book for what Chris is saying, quite a while. I find that disappointing. Those were probably 3 of my favorite characters on this goddamn team at the moment.
I wouldn't say favorite, but I didn't mind them. The whole angle of Beta Flight, the whole angle of the kids that they're taking care of, as poorly as Mantlo handled that, I found an interesting idea that just wasn't developed in a way that I found satisfying. So I'm glad that we're shutting down this failed attempt, but I don't regret that it comes back later. There will be another Beta Flight.
As you are saying that, and I'm thinking about what I just said, I'm not upset that Hudnall isn't going to mess with them, quite frankly. I think maybe being off the book for this run
keeps them safe.
Yeah. Are they secret? Are they safe?
Well, with that, Mantlo's entire Beta Flight is gone. And Hudnall has brought back Talisman, Shaman, and our friend, Secret Agent Linebacker Superhero Dr. Walter Lankowski, a.k.a. Sasquatch, who is also orange again.
It's like Hudnall's personal Saturday Night Massacre.
Except he also brought people in. The Saturday Night Massacre just gets rid of people.
I'm not enjoying Hudnall's work. I get the feeling I'm not going to in general. And I know it's an editorial dictate, but I will never forgive him for bringing Walt back. It's just that simple.
The jam up between what Hudnall wants to do and what it seems, or what he's told us the editorial tells him that they want, they don't always fit together in the right way, and Hudnall sticks to his vision harder than does the book good, And I think that a different writer would hear editorials say that, and they would lean out of their stuff a little bit more and let the editorial take point and then do what they can to get what they want into the book. Hudnall's just balls to the wall. This is what I'm doing. Oh, you want this? Sure, we'll do that with it. But this is what I'm doing. And it worked for Byrne, but Hudnall's no Byrne, you know?
Scene change to Ottawa, where Mr. Jeffries, a.k.a. Madison, a.k.a. Box, is phasing out of his box armor at his apartment? It's not 138 Laurier Drive, where he had been living with Heather, and it's not her parents' house where they were getting ready for their wedding.
Yeah. Everybody, and Heather, like, has an apartment. Now, I guess they call it a house, but they don't expressly identify it as 138 Laurier Drive. So, we're playing fast and loose with this. It's a minor point. As Madison prepares for Heather to come over, and if you know what I mean, and I think you do, former Gamma Flight member and former lover of Madison, Lil Crawley, shows up at his door. You may better know her as Diamond Lil, the indestructible woman who definitely helped murder Alpha Flight founder James McDonald Hudson, aka Guardian, back in issue number 12. Lil is blonde here for reasons, and that is probably Bob Sharen's fault.
She kisses Madison in his big picture window just as Heather pulls up and sees them.
It's the most soap opera thing Hudnall will give us his whole tenure, and I hate it. It's just here to break up Madison and Heather, which I didn't love, but it's just so sudden. Out of nowhere, and we're taking Heather's leadership of the team away with Talisman, and now we're taking Heather's relationship away with Lil. Like, that's what Heather does. That's what Heather has done for the last 50 fucking issues more. What is left for her to do? And Hudnall never fills that gap for Heather. This is kind of a bigger picture thing that I want to get into later, maybe even episodes later. But really, this is what sets that up here, is that these two female characters have been brought back into the book, but they have been given each half of what Heather did. And there's nothing left over for her. I don't like it.
A dejected and totally out of character Heather goes back to her generic house. And I say out of character because I'm shocked Lil is not dead.
Right! Like, Heather's supposed to kill somebody by now. Either Talisman or Lil.
Either one, possibly both. Like, her personal Saturday Night Massacre.
Kill one with the other. You know?
Yeah, there are lots of ways to do this. Heather goes back to her generic house, only to find Talisman sitting there cryptically and just begging for a plasma blast to the face at this point. Like, Heather is not in a good place, and, you know, etc.
It shows you how confident Talisman is in her power, that's for sure. Because, although Talisman probably doesn't know the murderous extent of Heather, because she hasn't been around for a lot of the murders.
Talisman info dumps to Heather that there is a reason for the recent uptick in mystical problems in Canada, from the Great Beast's continued attempts to return to pestilence to the Dream Queen. A once in 10,000 years cycle is coming to a head and, quote, the world enters a phase of darkness where everything evil gets the upper hand.
It feels kind of X-Files to me, although X-Files doesn't start until 1993. Rewriting the whole purpose and background narrative of what's been going on. I see what Hudnall wants to do, but it doesn't feel earned here or something. I don't know if he's just not pulling it off, but I can very much tell that he's trying to say, okay, look, I know this book hasn't had a lot of focus, so I'm going to take these incidents and then I'm going to layer a reason for these things happening on top of it, and that is going to tie all this together, and we'll deal with that reason as our plot line, and we'll make this whole thing more coherent. But he's just not good enough writer to do that. Or at least the writing that he's doing is not pulling off that aspect of it in order to pull off other aspects of what he's more interested in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it does make sense. It also, though, is ignoring the reasons that have already been provided. Like, the Great Beasts were built into Alpha Flight's very existence. Like, Snowbird's presence is because of the Great Beast. Pestilence, like, his location where he's buried is a part. Like, there are already reasons for these things. So he's manipulating those reasons to give more narrative thrust and to set up his own big bad, which, fine. New writer on the book. It's a comic. It's, you know, serial storytelling. You can do things like that. It just, I think, to your point, it doesn't feel earned yet. And
it saps the power from those previous stories into his story.
And his story doesn't feel terribly compelling. And we've already had 4 issues of him. Like, again, I said at the end of last episode, I didn't really want to like judge Hudnall based off of those 4 issues because it was clearly an attempt to shut down the Mantlo run and move on to something else. But having read 3 more issues, I ain't impressed. Like I'm just not. So
after having read 3 more issues, Tom is just sitting here sharpening a knife.
Much like Heather. Before they can talk much more, brand new villain, the Sorcerer, bursts through the wall and interrupts them. Who is he? How did he get here? Well, that's explained the B-plot that's been woven through these scenes that we can't ignore any longer.
All right, here we go. The oddly named Dexter Rain, mild-mannered accountant and avid environmentalist, has taken his doting wife Carol on a 2nd anniversary camping trip when he literally trips over a rock that turns out to be some type of small, evil-looking idol something. That night, Dexter ignores his wife's intimate advances. Oh, well, that's an unusual thing for Alpha Flight. And rolls over to sleep where the idol appears to him and lays on the hard sell approach to changing the world, Tom.
I was going to say earlier that Hudnall doesn't get Heather in a similar way to how Mantlo just didn't get Puck and other characters. But I think that by not having the sex happen, he just doesn't get Alpha Flight.
This is a very sexless Alpha Flight. The sex that happens is terrible and unconsenting and traumatic. It is not the freewheeling, the twins at Studio 54, you know?
Yeah, no, there's a sex positivity to like even Mantlo's run that is not present here.
Even Byrne's terrible treatment to Aurora's adolescence is uncomfortably sex positive. He doesn't present that as a 16-year-old girl being taken advantage of by adult people other than the priest. He presents that as Aurora, or as Jean-Marie taking her body and her physical presence into her own control and making decisions about that, but being 16 years old and making bad decisions as a result. I did not expect to do that. Back to Dexter Rain and his dream with the idol. So we're gonna
do a little voice work.
This is gonna be fun. Do you want the idol? You want the idol?
Oh, I want the idol.
Did you know the insurance company you work for is helping the corporations pollute the earth? Your company provides liability insurances.
Seriously, the fucking idol is talking about liability insurances.
Yeah, I'm glad that you keyed in on that as well.
So if a corporation gets sued for environmental damages, your company pays their court damages.
But they're an insurance company. That's what they do.
The polluters continue to destroy nature with their greed and filth, and your company helps to keep them in business.
Yeah, but...
Did you know your wife is cheating on you?
Non sequitur. Non sequitur.
But yes, non sequitur out of nowhere, to which Dexter says, "That's not true. Who's she seeing?"
But it is Dexter. I know everything. I see everything. The Earth is going to die in 20 years. Pollution is killing the oceans. The rainforests are being destroyed. The ozone is disappearing faster and faster. The end is fast approaching. Human beings are drowning in their own filth. But you can do something about it, Dexter. You can stop it from happening.
Whew, man!
Poor Dexter. This is how he learns there's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
Well, there's no ethical employment under late-stage capitalism either, you know? That's a weird selling point. It like, you can see the manipulation that is happening here.
Well, also, I think what's even odder about it is that the idol throws in your wife is cheating on you, then lays out the rest of the shtick and doesn't circle back to being like,
it's Dave. Your buddy Dave. Totally schlepping your wife.
Oh, I knew it. I never trusted that guy.
See, that would actually provide even better justification for what comes next.
The next morning, Carol awakes to find Dexter already off in the woods, talking to the idol quietly and acting really weird and defensive and secrety. Like, I know it's 1989, but the way that she finds him talking to the idol is the way that you would find a cheating spouse texting somebody on their phone when you weren't around, you know?
Or like someone being possessed, because horror movies do exist in 1989, and finding someone off in the woods talking to something like that is never a good sign. Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 have both come out at this point.
He sends Carol back to their campsite to make breakfast in a very paternalistic way that we have not really seen from Dexter so far. And their campsite seems to consist of just a double sleeping bag and literally nothing else. There is no tent. There's like a pot and a fire and a sleeping bag, and they went to sleep under the stars last night. It is the most sparse camping I have ever seen.
Yeah.
But he whispers to the idol, I don't know what I'm going to do after you've given me these powers you mentioned. I mean, what are they going to be? How much power will I have?
The page is split into 8 panels, 2 columns of 4. On the left is Dexter looking down into his hands, and on the right is a close-up view of the idol in his hands, but with no word balloons.
Dexter then says, that much? As if the idol had spoken to him, but there are no word panels for us. How am I going to hide that from Carol? You said she's never going to know, but I can't see how. And again, we cut to the idol, but closer this time. Okay, I understand all that. You're going to give me these powers so I can save the environment, but that still doesn't explain how I can keep Carol from knowing anything.
Again, cut to the idol in his hands, but closer.
No, you can't mean that, not that.
And, once again, to the idol, but even closer. Dexter then walks back to the campsite, wraps his hands around Carol's throat, and snaps her neck, saying,
I'm sorry, Carol. I'm so sorry.
Then hangs her by her feet from a nearby tree, grabs the pot she was about to make breakfast in, and puts the idol in. Then slits Carol's throat into the pot, which will dissolve the idol and set up Dexter for the next step, which is to drink the blood of his beloved wife that is mixed with the evil idol he found in the ground like 12 hours ago.
And that's where the sorcerer comes from before he bursts into Heather's house.
There's some stuff to unpack here.
Yeah, some stuff.
Before we get too far into it, I do want to say that panel sequence was pretty well done.
Yeah,
it was a smart conceit. It's probably the best stretch of panel work in this, and well, all 3 issues we're going to cover today.
The evilness of the sorcerer and the idol and the way the manipulation happens, I feel like is actually better done than a lot of how the Dream Queen is handled, even though they kind of are playing on some of the same things here of, manipulating people to get a foothold into the world, blah, blah, blah. But, I will say Hudnall does a great job of making me say, oh, this is pretty fucking evil.
It's extremely evil.
Okay, we're doing a horror book now,
You could be forgiven for thinking the first part of this issue, or the parts that did not involve Dexter and the idol, were just sort of a more standard soap opera-y superhero comic.
Normal
right?
superhero comic that just, wow.
This is something very, very different. There's a scaling that he's going for that's kind of interesting that we kind of lost in the middle of the Mantlo run, certainly, where it seemed a little bit more like it was so focused in on the team and their exploit from book to book to book. This is trying to get expand the scope. Sure.
That insight actually applies to all of Hudnall moving forward, in that we're going to be getting crossovers into a lot of other mainstream Marvel stuff, where Hudnall, I think, is being told by editorial, just like you said, we need to expand the scope of Alpha Flight. They've been here doing their own thing, and they feel like they're unconnected from the rest of the Marvel world, much like the X-Men were for a long time.
As we've discussed, the idea that, Marvel, certainly during this period, is really a sequence of silos that occasionally interact with each other, even if they're...
That's about to end, friend.
Yeah. But they need to interact occasionally for there to be that cohesion, right? And so this is... what you're telling me is that apparently, and I by the end of the third issue that we're going to discuss today, it's clear they're about to start touching on a lot of other Marvel properties. And so clearly this is an attempt to get Alpha Flight back into that element of the fold and that element of how Marvel runs things. So
we will have a lot more to say about this at the end of Hudnall's run, and I am curious. I'm looking forward to discussing this particular aspect with you. So make an editor's note, Tom. We need to come back to this expanding the scope of Alpha Flight, because that's one thing that Hudnall does successfully for a certain value of success. So as a horror story, boy, hitting the ground running, and I'm all about this. As a horror story, I just don't come to Alpha Flight for horror. You know, I come here for body horror mixed in with superhero stuff, but not this horror, you know?
There's a feel to this that I actually mentioned off mic, that the Dexter Rain part of the storyline feels very much like a Vertigo title, or an attempt at a Vertigo title. A little bit more adult, more horror forward, all that. And I think that actually kind of plays out with how he is using and abusing the Alpha Flight characters. It's almost more like he's wearing it's like the skin. It's like Alpha Flight is a skin. And, you know, Marvel Rivals, baby. Like, this is the skin for the character. This, you know, they have certain powers, whatever, but it's a property he's on that is available to him, but he's going to write it how he wants to write it, whether or not that is consistent with the characterization to date. I mean, this book has been around for over 5 years at this point. He picks up over 60 issues in, and he really is kind of screwing with the characters in a not dissimilar way from what Mantlo did. So I guess this is just what you get to do. You get to fuck up the characters.
You know those versions of like Winnie the Pooh or Scooby-Doo where they make those characters into some type of like eldritch abomination and make this very familiar, comforting thing from childhood into something truly horrific and terrible and not to say it again, but horrific. Like, it just awful. That's kind of what he's doing with Alpha Flight here.
Yeah, he's kind of, he really is kind of Buffalo Billing it. Like, he's wearing it as a suit. And that's,
he's wearing the feather boa and nothing else. Would you read me? I'd read me so hard.
Fuck, I did not see that one coming. Moving right along.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about this whole idle, just couple of pages, and the way that we see the seduction of Dexter over into doing this horrific act in the real world. That is a really interesting writing construct. And in 1989, I bet it looked different than now, because now we might as well call the idol Claude or Grok, because the way that the idol keys in on what Dexter cares about and then immediately starts using what Dexter cares about to pry his morals apart and to convince him to do something based on those morals that he would never have done before. There's an interesting AI parallel here that I don't feel qualified to draw.
I think you've actually drawn it pretty
well. Thank you.
I mean, I don't think we have to go like much further in. I mean, this has been a recurring theme throughout human history. I mean, after Goethe published The Sorrows of Young Werther, there was a spate of suicides in Germany. Because people read it and thought this was the romantic ideal and started throwing themselves off of bridges. You know, there was the...
Wait, is that where if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you as well come from?
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked, but I kind of think it's just sort of it's probably worth looking into.
You know, when I sat down to record this, I had not expected Goethe reference.
But you also had this is the 80s. You had the satanic panic that had been kicking in since the 70s. You had the idea that Dungeons and Dragons was going to influence people. There was that really weird, terrible Tom Hanks movie where he goes into like the steam tunnels under New York City because he becomes so obsessed with the game. I mean, so this is, yes, the AI thing is at a scale and is very pertinent to this moment right now. But this might actually be more of a feature of how humans function than a bug. You know, like this ability to have an external something influence us by appealing directly to what we think is so core to our being.
So, Tom, are you saying that there's a through line from Dexter Rain all the way back to Joan of Arc?
Don't love that you put Dexter next to Joan, but yeah, kinda. I mean,
Listeners,
sure.
Did you expect to think about Joan of Arc and Goethe when you woke up this morning?
or as we say in Chicago, Goethe.
Oh, really? Do they?
No. I mean, some people do. But there's a Goethe Street, random aside, and then we'll get back to the episode. But so there is a Goethe Street on the north side of the city. And definitely some people call it Goethe or Goth or whatever. My mom, when she first moves here, is riding the bus up north and almost misses her stop because the bus driver announces, as he's announcing the various streets that they're approaching and the various stops, he goes, now approaching Goethe Street. And she just did not expect someone to pronounce it properly. So... yeah.
Whereas here in St. Louis, every street is pronounced differently than you expect it to be pronounced.
Yeah, well, I think that's just a general Missouri thing.
Well, before we move on, we do have to note, this is a death that takes place on panel, so take a drink, even though this joke is in profoundly bad taste in this context.
Though not as bad as that soup tasted, I'm sure.
Get out.
We pick up the story in Alpha Flight number 72, titled Endgame. Cover date, July 1989. Same creative team as before, except Jerry Taliak is credited as the guest artist, so he seemingly did the pencils and the inks.
And Tom Defalco is editor in Wonderland.
I'm just not even going to respond to it anymore. On the cover, newly introduced villain, the Sorcerer, is blasting Talisman and Heather against a very generic background. Once again, Heather's maple leaf is not a maple leaf, and everything looks serviceable. It's a comic book. They're not all going to be top tier, and Alpha Flight is clearly falling from B tier to C tier in quality. Calimee, it's just off. He was not ready for primetime.
When I speed read this, I didn't really key in on Calimee's art as being a thing. I think because there's guest artists for both the book and covers mixed in this period. Like, we've even had some recent Jim Lee covers, even though he hasn't done the book for a while. But that helps to kind of dilute the art in this era. And it just changed so much that it all kind of just blurred together for me. But to be fair, I was scanning mostly for character story and development and leaving the art to when we get to it now in the show.
We get a proper splash page open of Madison Jeffries sitting dejectedly on the ruins of his box armor in some weird, trippy planetscape.
Taliak's art is immediately noticeable. Not that
jarring, jarring as hell from the last issue.
It's not that Jerry is bad at all. It's just very, very different than Calimee. I can't quite nail down how, but it really does feel like an inker doing the pencils. You know what I mean? There's a looseness to it.
Well, and like the penciler is doing his own inks. But I think part of it is that Taliak is offering more detail than Calimee. Calimee has got a very, I'm not even sure
sparse.
Quite how to phrase it. Sparse style, yes, absolutely. And
which I don't mind, actually. Like, that's probably the best part of Calimee's art is the less that he draws.
Right.
Oh, God, that sounds terrible when you say it that way.
Yep. But Madison here, for instance, like looks haggard. Like there are lines on his face that I don't think Calimee would have added. And there is a greater density to the line work, to the art itself that makes it quite distinct. And in some ways feel a little bit more like a Byrne issue than anything we've seen in quite some time. But also, but there's also something of an action figure plastic quality at times.
Because the inker does the shading, and there was a very specific thing where Heather's skin has really tightly inked shading lines that I felt weren't helped by the coloring choices, but Bob Sharen normally does a good job, but Bob Sharen isn't normally asked to do that sort of thing. But then there's also some great face work.
There's an inconsistency within the issue itself that it's not just that it's Taliak doing it and not Calimee. Like it's just a weird feeling issue. There's a reason
Jerry doesn't do pencils.
Yeah. I think that's where we're at.
Although we did learn this issue that Jerry picked up the pencil because he wants to draw boobies.
Yes, you do note in the script that there is some unnecessarily elaborate breastwork on Heather.
Well, she's actually out of the suit for like the first half of the book. So, of course she has to wear a camisole with nothing supporting underneath. Anyway, the splash page is essentially, yeah, this is me. Bet you're wondering how I got here, huh? And then the rest of the issue is a flashback.
It boils down to a whole lot of the sorcerer showing that he's super evil and super powerful, like Beyonder level of powerful. He transports Heather and Talisman to what he calls a non-zone, a dimension built by celestial beings as a combat arena, a place with no witnesses or interruptions or food or water, a place powerful beings can wreck instead of the worlds they are fighting over.
This concept doesn't seem to be mentioned again anywhere else ever. Even fandom.com lists this as unnamed other dimension.
But he literally just named it.
I know. Yeah, don't believe everything you read online, kids.
The sorcerer then snaps Shaman and our friend's secret agent linebacker superhero Dr. Walter Langowski into this non-zone, the former in his black and white ceremonial epic loot drop costume and the latter in his bathrobe. They are both understandably confused, but Shaman instantly recognizes the sorcerer for what he is.
Walt is... Okay, how do I put this politely? Walt has just returned to the world after Snowbird shapeshifted Wanda away in like 3 panels. We all know what Walt was doing in the privacy of his home, in his bathrobe, when he got snapped into the non-zone.
I hate this podcast.
Tom, I'm now envisioning a Van Wilder version of Alpha Flight, because there's, just this week, there were rumors of an Alpha Flight project coming out of Marvel Studios. I'm envisioning a Van Wilder version of Alpha Flight, and the running gag is that Walt is constantly trying to test out his new body, and is interrupted in increasingly ludicrous and embarrassing ways, before finally finishing in a donut.
Yeah, I'm putting us back on the highway. Rounding out Team Non-Zone, TNZ if you will, are Box and Diamond Lil, who's just hanging around him like a millstone these days, apparently.
The sorcerer is a dick to everyone and intentionally goading them, and I realized, Tom, we haven't described the sorcerer at all. Yeah, he looks like he sings for a band with like a font for their band name that looks like a bunch of deer antlers piled together.
Yeah, I think that sums it up.
He has like a wide mohawk. He's got a widow's peak, and then it kind of follows the widow's peak and comes back, but the sides are shaved up real high. He's got red eyes, and he's got a third red dot, but it's not an eye. It's not like a third eye. It's just a red decoration in the center of his forehead. He's real skinny.
I'm sure Hudnall thought he looked really cool and really intimidating, and neither one of those two things is true.
The sorcerer looks like he could be dropped over into the Sandman and like would be drawn in a way that would fit that book perfectly fine. But over here, he's just kind of a skinny asshole who does mean things to people.
Yeah, well, again, someone thought he was writing a Vertigo title.
There's a cape. It's a blue bodysuit with briefs on the outside with red highlights. Other than that, you literally don't need to care about what it is the sorcerer looks like, because he's not even going to appear now for a while. He's just going to be in the background manipulating things.
The sorcerer's a dick to everyone, gets them all riled up, and he takes them on one by one with zero teamwork and even less effect on him. Like they do nothing. Like he wrecks their shit. He snaps both of Sasquatch's arms, destroys the box armor, and then changes it such that Madison can't even reform it. He even gave Heather her power suit back, because when this started was the one time she had taken it off.
She is never, ever taking that suit off again, is she?
Nope, it is going to be rank. Talisman finally lashes out and attacks the sorcerer, and that apparently has been the whole point of what he's been doing.
And she knew it. Go ahead.
In this once every 10,000 year event, the sorcerer rises up to challenge the forces of good, but evil can't act first. It has to be attacked. And apparently it has to be attacked by the talisman. With the talisman having attacked him and him, the sorcerer, now being given free reign to do whatever he wants, he strands them in this hellscape. Before doing so, he reminds the assembled team that there is no food here and it's Talisman's fault. So, Alpha Flight should probably just go ahead and eat her first.
What the fuck? Good God, man. This is a book for kids.
Even if it's not a book for kids, that's Jesus.
There is some wind here in this story. Don't get me wrong. But it's not enough to get airborne, and this book is not pointed in the right direction to take advantage of this wind. It's just a mess and chaos. There's some cool art stuff, like the conversation between Dexter and the idol. There's some good ideas, but it's totally inconsistent between pages because, boy, Jerry is just... I like that opening splash page. Pretty cool. I like the detailed look on Heather's face later on. But boy, some weird and janky stuff coming out, but otherwise very well laid out and interesting. Some cool narration box stuff happening, but it's really heavy-handed because that's how Hudnall writes. Shaman, every time Shaman opens his damn mouth, he sounds wrong and weird. And characters aren't developing anymore. They're just reacting to what's going on and what Elizabeth is telling them they have to do next. And the characters are getting boiled down to a simple trait. There's attempts to tie together all of Alpha Flight's history into one overarching narrative, and that narrative is pretty generic and unengaging so far.
And incredibly, explicitly, horrifically violent.
Hudnall is Temu Alan Moore. Not even that. He's like Wish.com Alan Moore. We complained a lot about cue the organ. Mantlo. But Mantlo's shenanigans were cheeky and fun. Hudnall's shenanigans are cruel and tragic, Tom.
This sets us up for Alpha Flight number 73, titled Homeward Bound, cover date August 1989. Same creative team as before, except John Calimee is back on pencils and Mike Manley is on inks.
And Tom Defalco is still not Canadian in these credits. There has been a recurring motif in the letters pages about the lack of Canadian input on the book ever since John Byrne left. In fact, in this issue, the letters page has a request from the editors for Canadian readers to send in reference pictures, tourist brochures, pretty much anything that would give them a feel for Canada as a real place instead of a mythical thing made up like Atlantis.
It's really not a good it's really not a good look.
No, it's not, Tom. And I think Tom Defalco is picking that up because I'm still not Canadian, guys. Sorry, there's not a lot I can do about this. On the cover, the team fights a generic giant bug-looking robot thing. It's serviceable.
Talisman informs the team she can detect an interdimensional portal off in the distance and they need to get there before they die of lack of water. This understandably upsets Heather because, seriously, for the last 6 issues, Elizabeth has just been telling people what to do, and damn it, that's Heather's job. Plus, she hasn't killed anyone in days, man. Days.
I mean, Heather is the battlefield commander, and more so than the big picture person. Ever since she agreed to go back under Department H's control back on Tamarind Island, she hasn't really had a big picture either. It's been reacting and steering the team in roughly a direction, not dragging them in a direction like Elizabeth has been.
They get to the gate, which is actually kind of cool, unnecessarily
there's
cool.
Dead celestial bodies, and they all are, pointing to the center, and they make the circle, and their bones set up the resonance. Really cool idea in one panel. Would love to have some more of that, guys. Moving on.
After passing through it, Elizabeth calls the space they're in the Crossroads, and Sasquatch says,
I don't believe this place. It's crazy. Damn it, Hudnall. Sasquatch has been here. How can you deep cut a place like the Crossroads and not clock that it has intersected with this book already? Can we do it, Tom? I know that we retired this gag before, but I feel like it's really been deserved.
Hudnall,
you bum!
The team hops through a few dimensions. The sorcerer has been leaving them notes and traps along the way. They finally end up in New York, and Sasquatch declares,
All right, let's get a dozen pizzas.
because this is 1989, they quickly find a discarded newspaper that informs them that President Reed Richards has disbanded the Senate and Congress. And that's how the issue ends.
Boy, things are happening here. Whew. These issues felt uncomfortably like the last several. Like, the last several we could forgive, as Hudnall tried to steer the team from where Mantlo was sending them and course-correcting the book, but this felt like 3 more issues of the same dynamic, relentlessly directing the momentum of the book at the expense of the characters being the characters that they have been.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like the character's story anymore. There's a story that's happening, and they happen to be in it. I mean, I think we've kind of hit on it throughout the course of this episode so far that, like, this just feels like the story that Hudnall wants to write, and he just happens to be getting his shot to write it with Alpha Flight, and that's just how it's going to be. Like, this is his story. It's his story, damn it.
I'm going to say something that's going to piss you off, Tom. This is what I felt like when I read Hickman's Avengers.
Interesting.
That there was a story that was happening that the author wanted to tell. And it's not any critique about the story whatsoever, but telling that story in a context that's supposed to be about these other characters. This is a different form of storytelling than Marvel Comics generally engages in 1989. And we can very much feel that Hudnall is trying to bring in these other influences that are contemporary. We've talked before about how he writes like Alan Moore style books for each book. It's just, that's not what Marvel does, you know? Like,
yeah. I mean, I can see your point around Hickman. I think Hickman stays truer to the characters in a lot of respects. But in terms of
the auteur writer who has a story to tell in all capitals and then uses this unpresupposing comic book setting to slip in the heavy-hitting story, like, you can tell what Hudnall wants to be. He's just not, he's no Neil Gaiman, you know? He's no Bendis. He's no more.
Well, and he's also no Hickman. I mean, Hickman is a much better writer than Hudnall, by far. And also, Hickman was doing that under, like, that was the editorial direction that they were going in.
Correct. Hudnall's just ahead of the game.
Or Hudnall's just doing, like, because it's Alpha Flight, he can kind of do what he wants, I feel like, is part of what's happening here. I mean, look.
Well, I think that's what he thinks. It's just he's not skilled enough to pull that off.
And at this juncture, I'm not really going to hold back. He is not a good enough writer to do the things that he feels that he wants to do. And, you know, that's fine. Like, that happens. But it is doing the book as a whole a disservice.
I think this book could have survived either Hudnall or Calimee. I think it is the unique combo of both of them that gives it the blow that the book never really recovers from, no matter what is thrown at it to try to help out. After everything that Bill did with the book, you've got Byrne, you've got Mantlo, you've got these 2 different approaches to what Alpha Flight is and how this book works. And then the next batch is this, of 2 people who were not ready for primetime, is what it boils down to. And that, like, you can tell that Carl Potts is like, all right, look, I've got this book. It is not the best-selling book, but it's doing okay. We got to keep this going. I got some talent that I would like to develop so that we can, you know, get some new things going on in here. But that doesn't always work out, you know? Not everybody can be the A-team. Not everybody can be given a chance and hit it out of the park and that inspirational story. In fact, those inspirational stories are the exception, not the rule. And we're just watching the rule why it exists. And that's sad.
It's too bad. But you know what? We're over halfway through this volume. We're not quitters. We're gonna keep on going.
Tom, it takes a little more to be a champion.
To be a champion. But before I fully commit to that, how many issues does Hudnall write? Like, how much longer are we with him for?
I think it's like 12 or 13 that he writes.
Oh,
it's not a lot, but it's more than we want to read.
But it does a lot.
Why Not Read Alpha Flight is brought to you by the Excelsior Embroidery Company, part of the Roxxon family of companies, and is legally required to say it is proud to be part of making a reality the Donald J. Trump Ballroom and invite-only human trafficking market, a totally normal thing for a totally normal president to create. This week, Excelsior is featuring a patch that looks like a charged playing card from Gambit. It's pretty neat. See this and hundreds more designs at excelsiorembroidery.etsy.com, where listeners of Why Not can use the coupon code WN503 to get 50% off any 3 items in the store.
Why Not Read Alpha Flight with Chris and Tom is recorded in Chicago, Illinois, and deep beneath stately Baker Manor in a fashionable neighborhood outside St. Louis. It is written by Chris Baker, edited by Tom Flynn and Chris Baker, with additional cat noises courtesy of Teeny the Needy Calico. Our theme song is Oh Canada by Five Iron Frenzy. New episodes are released every second and fourth Monday of the month at www.thewhynotpod.com and wherever you get your podcasts, where ratings and reviews are always welcome as a way to help our community grow. And we love hearing from our community. You can reach us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and by email at whynotehpod@gmail.com, whynotapod@gmail.com. Join us next time as we just keep this Hudnall trend going. Talk to y'all then. Bye.